The silence behind the door. I was sitting at my desk, staring at the glow of my computer screen, fingers flying across the keyboard as I worked to finish an article long overdue. It was a quiet weekend, one of those rare moments when the entire family was home, and the world outside seemed to slow down. My wife was in the kitchen preparing dinner, and the sound of pots clinking against each other blended with the occasional laughter of our two kids playing in their room. The atmosphere was perfect, a warm cocoon of domestic life. But then I noticed it. The silence. At first it was subtle, like the kind of quiet you don't immediately register until it stretches on for just a little too long. I paused mid-sentence, my hands hovering above the keyboard. No laughter, no clanging dishes, not even the faint hum of the fridge from the kitchen. The house was completely still. I took off my headphones and listened more carefully. My pulse quickened as the silence pressed in on me, heavy and unnatural. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the kids had gotten bored and wandered into the living room to watch TV. Maybe my wife had stepped outside to get something. But deep down, I felt it. A gnawing unease I couldn't quite place. I pushed back my chair and stood up. "Lisa? Max?" I called out, heading toward the kids' room. No response. The hallway felt colder than usual, though the thermostat hadn't budged. The door to their room was ajar, and I nudged it open, expecting to see them sprawled on the floor with their toys or tucked into their usual fort of pillows and blankets. But the room was empty. Toys were scattered across the floor, abandoned mid-play, and the window was open, letting in a draft of icy winter air. "Kids?" I said again, louder this time. Nothing. I shut the window and turned toward the kitchen, my chest tightening with each step. "Claire?" I called for my wife, trying to keep my voice steady. As I reached the kitchen doorway, I stopped. The room looked untouched. Dinner half prepped on the counter, a knife resting next to a chopping board, covered in diced vegetables. But she wasn't there. I glanced toward the back door. It was locked from the inside. "Claire?" I said again, louder, the panic now rising in my throat. I grabbed my phone from my pocket to call her, but the screen remained dark. Dead. I cursed under my breath and rushed to the living room. The TV was off, and the curtains were drawn tightly, blocking out the fading afternoon light. The house was too quiet. "Lisa, Max, Claire!" I yelled, my voice echoing back at me. As I stood there trying to make sense of what was happening, I felt a faint vibration beneath my feet, subtle but unmistakable. It came in rhythmic intervals, like footsteps, from upstairs. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but something compelled me to move forward. Maybe it was desperation to find my family. Maybe it was sheer foolishness. I climbed the stairs slowly, each creak of the wood beneath my feet reverberating like a gunshot in the oppressive silence. The air grew colder with every step, biting into my skin despite the warmth of the house. When I reached the landing, I saw that the door to the master bedroom was slightly open, revealing only darkness inside. "Claire?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The vibration stopped. I froze, listening. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then, from the darkness of the bedroom, came a noise, a soft, wet, squelching sound, like something being dragged across the floor. My stomach churned, and I felt bile rise in my throat. I forced myself to step closer, the air growing heavier with every inch. I pushed the door open. The room was pitch black, the curtains were drawn, and the light switch near the door did nothing when I flicked it. My eyes slowly adjusted to the dimness, and that's when I saw it. "Jim, it's great company," said the voice between the curtains. "Which I thought you..." At first, it looked like a shadow. Tall, impossibly tall, and hunched over near the corner of the room. Its form was wrong, jagged and shifting as if it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Then it moved. There was a low groan from an incomplete word. Ah. The sound that came from it was unlike anything I'd ever heard. A low, guttural growl that seemed to reverberate in my chest. It dragged itself toward me, its limbs too long and too thin, bending at unnatural angles. I stumbled back, my breath caught in my throat. "Where are they?" I shouted, my voice cracking. It didn't respond. Instead, it stopped, its head tilting toward me in an almost curious gesture. And then, it grinned. The grin stretched far too wide, splitting its face in two. Rows of needle-like teeth glinted in the faint light. My legs refused to move, paralyzed by the sheer wrongness of what I was seeing. Suddenly, from somewhere in the house, I heard it, the faint laughter of my children. I had never thought to laugh with them, and I had never thought to love them. "Daddy, come play with us." The voice was Liza's, but it was distorted, wrong, echoing in a way that sent shivers down my spine. "Daddy?" Max's voice followed, higher pitched and laced with something that sounded almost like mockery. I turned to run, but the thing in the room moved faster than I thought possible. Its limbs contorted, and it lunged toward me, its grin widening further. I slammed the door shut and bolted down the stairs, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. As I reached the front door, the laughter grew louder, coming from every corner of the house. It was joined by whispers, dozens of voices speaking in a language I couldn't understand, yet instinctively feared. The footsteps sounded. The door wouldn't budge. Behind me, I heard the creature descending the stairs, each step accompanied by that wet, dragging sound. I ran to the living room and threw open the window, the cold air hitting me like a wall. I didn't care. I climbed out and dropped onto the snowy lawn, my breath coming in gasps. I turned back toward the house. In the window of the master bedroom, I saw them, Claire, Liza, and Max. They were standing perfectly still, their faces blank and expressionless. Behind them, the shadow loomed, its grin the last thing I saw before I ran. I've been running ever since. I don't know what happened to my family, or if they're even still alive. All I know is that it's still out there. It's watching, waiting, and one day it will find me, and when it does, I know I won't survive.